James, are you a believer?
I am a believer. I am a believer because I feel as though we wouldn't. It was 10 days ago almost, maybe a little longer that we heard about this. So if they really like this guy and then they start making contacts, they have to be serious to a degree, right? And they're not stupid. We know what Brighton sell for. We know what Caicedo went for. We know what these things cost. They must have some idea of what's going to be going on here. And the fact that the player is open to it, which he is, means there is a potential for a deal. And with these people, with this club, with this ownership, with this team, it just feels like they're just ready to just do whatever. It's hard to cast doubt on them. I would have if it was 3 weeks ago. I'd been like, come on, guys, like give it a rest. Like it's not going to happen, right? But how can we write it off now? They're kind of just willing to do whatever. We keep saying, oh yeah, that's done. Now we need money. We'll be slow, and then they're throwing 85 million euros at deals. Like they're just doing things we would never have expected. And so, how can you write them off in that respect?
Back to believing.
Yeah,
Owen.
Yeah. Do you know what? I was talking about this morning. Going, and I mentioned this a few days ago. It doesn't happen all the times, of course, but when Man United get linked to a player, and I say link, like proper, like to say David Ornstein comes out or what have you, and says like Man United have made contact, and Brighton are being quite trivial with or loose with the term contact. They go, well, not directly, and it's kind of like, well, you know, how do these things start for intermediaries, agents, etc. So it's one of those, and they've been like, oh, we haven't actually really heard about it, but you know, Man United, it's advanced to a stage that people are actually reporting on it, like David Ornstein, which is pretty significant. So usually, in that case, Man United end up getting their player. Not all the time. You know, last season, Jared Brantwaite's a good example of that, right? 2 bids turned down, and United went, we'll go elsewhere, and that was heavily reported on.
I forgot about that.
Is that the only one, by the way, where it was like we didn't agree to deal with the club? Because we got turned down by players like Delap and, you know, otherwise. Yeah. Is that the only one we actually failed to get a deal with the club done?
I think so. So that's why it is significant that, you know, United are, it's far enough along, or at least it's well known enough that Man United are trying to do it, that people with significance are reporting on it. So I think that's quite encouraging. Now, Brighton, they drive a really hard bargain, but I did find it interesting with what the Brighton person who was at the fan forum said the other day, which is basically, look, we want him to stay, but effectively everyone's got a price. These things happen. And as they proved it with Moises Caicedo. And for those, obviously, United fans that are kind of scoffing at, you know, 104 million pounds, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for a transfer that doesn't work out. Mm-hmm. If it works out, it doesn't really matter, the fees. The only reason we talk so much as a fan base about transfer fees is because they haven't worked out. The reason we talk about, you know, 100 million euro for Antony is because it's not worked out. The reason we talk so much about Rasmus Højlund is because it's not worked out. That's why we talk about it. Moises Caicedo, 2 seasons in, we're not even really talking that much about the transfer fee anymore because he's worked out. Chelsea are now winning Club World Cups. They paid that. They've won enough prize money to pay for that deal alone. So it doesn't really matter all that much, does it? So with someone that's 21, I don't know if I can see United going to 104 million pounds. I think it might be a case of maybe a little bit lower with some installments and maybe test the resolve of not only Brighton, but also Baleba and say, how badly do you want to join us? Because they did the same thing with Cunha and Bumo and Sesko, saying, make it well known you only want to join us. Then maybe something can happen there. So I wouldn't rule it out. This one, though, is definitely the hardest one to do out of all of them that we've done. They've almost got more progressively difficult, I think. You know, Cunha, release clause, slam dunk. And Bumo, it really was, he only wanted us. It was within the budget. The Sesko one, we didn't, obviously, no one really knew that we had that amount of money left over. And
no, but it was just so quick, though.
But, you know, this is the hardest one. This is definitely the hardest. If they can pull this off, then wow. Then, you know, Ruben's got to deliver. My goodness me. And if he doesn't, someone else will with that group of players, because they're not specific just for him. They're specific for United, not Ruben Amorim, which is pretty encouraging too.
That's one of the biggest things I've taken from this window of what I've been really pleased about. Like I've learnt my lessons of, you know, not going too strong on the manager and get the manager everything he wants for his system, and just look at recruitment as a whole. And recruitment as a whole has just been so far in one direction to just suit the manager. And I think we messed up with that big time with Eric. Getting him everything was linked to him in some way. I mean, there was always something that led back to him, even down to Mason Mount when he was at Vitesse or something like that. And Eric might have seen him in the Netherlands. And actually, Vitesse, they're under big pressure now. I think they might even go under. Vitesse.
Yeah,
I was
just
reading
lost
the
their
other days.
license.
Yeah, just lost their license. Not great. But there was always a way back. Whether it is Anthony, whether it is Martinez, whether it is Onana, whether it was Amrabat. Mason Mount, like I said, not Rasmus Højlund. Who else?
Well, there's De Ligt Mazraoui, isn't there?
De Ligt to Mazraoui. There you go.
Yeah.
So we had to start signing players that are just really good. Like, it's not about 3-4-3. It's not about Ruben's principles. Of course, by buying these guys, you have to have a view to where they're going to play in the system. So they've proved that they're looking like they're adaptable to that. But like you said, if Ruben left in a couple of months, which I don't think he will, by the way, but if he did, then you just got good players. The Sesko one, like in terms of my situation with Baleba, I just want to talk about Sesko quickly. It just happened so quick. Like I know you can argue that it didn't because it's towards like we're about to start the season, but in terms of getting the two in first, which we worked on, but as soon as we turned our attention to Sesko, like properly, it was done. Like it was done. When we was on tour, I saw the original it's coming out that we want him. By the time I got back, it was near enough done. By the time I got off the plane, that's when the bid went in that day. That was Tuesday I got back. So the bid went in then. By Wednesday, it was like, yeah, we pretty much know he's chosen Man United. And Thursday was deal agreed / here we go. You know what I mean?
Is this the best example of Ineos working on a market opportunity?
Because Newcastle United putting in the bid, this, that, and the third.
Exactly.
He's taken a wage cut to come here. We've ironed out what we want. We've made it clear what we've got versus what we don't have, and we've been quite forceful because Newcastle are there, and we've also offered less money, not just by wages, but just actual less transfer fee as well.
Yeah.
So we've definitely been ruthless.
Yeah, but I mean, more so like. With other targets that we've got, particularly under Ineos over the last year or so, they've been very strategic in the sense of we've been obviously following Cunha for a long time and Boomer for a long time. We still have been following Sesko for a long time. This isn't like we've just decided to go for him. But I don't think he was priority number one this summer. But I think as the window's played out, they've gone, I tell you what, that is actually a market opportunity. And the more we talk to him, and Christopher, of course, Vival's a massive part of that, of driving home. This is the guy you want to get working. It's probably actually maybe the best example, along with Lenny Yoro's signing last year, of how this structure is meant to work together in the recruitment market, of each person doing their individual work in the sense of Vival spearheading it. But you've got the coach of also, by all accounts, actually, there was this idea that kind of Amarin wasn't on board to an extent. He preferred Watkins, and then that's now been disputed of actually, no, he suggested Watkins could be an alternative, but the one they did say actually the most was Sesko. And then you've got obviously Wilcox, who we know is very heavily involved in that, going out there and doing the talks with Vival, leading it. So maybe it's one of the better examples, along with when we signed Lenny Yoro last year and you had Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox really pushing that one through and swaying him to instead of joining Real Madrid, of how actually we can still get these big deals. And when they're weighing up their options, we can still get that done. And This is something I mentioned this morning too. Even as a United fan, I kind of went, we can't really play but we're Man United chip that much anymore because it's not as powerful as it used to be. I think the biggest takeaway from this transfer window is that actually Ineos have proved that it's the cachet is still really strong for Manchester United.
It's kind of like, rather than, we're big Man United, we've won everything. It's a little more like, do you want to be the person that brings United back? And we've got the most exciting project in football because we have the biggest club in the world that's on its knees, and you can be the one to take it to the top. Because that's how it was presented, like the Cunha situation. Like he's got a bit of an ego of like Bruno, like a bit of a savior complex. Like I want to be the one to take United back. And then you start stacking. Once you get those players, you get another and another and another. And you think like with someone like Sesko, if you didn't have Cunha in and you didn't have Mbumo in, would it have been as easy to convince him to pick us? And I think they kind of pile on top of each other, like all these great players, these proven players, these guys who are already in the Premier League. scoring goals and playing at a top level are choosing to join Manchester United despite that finish. That's got to get some momentum going, where now you go to someone like Baleba and you look at why it might be last and say, he's going to look at that and say, holy shit, look what these guys have done in a window. Look at these players joining them. There might be something special happening here that I want to be a part of. And I think that momentum builds within itself. Bruno staying, I think that was an underrated aspect of Bruno not choosing to leave, even though we could have been like, we needed the money, which apparently we didn't. Like you said, we didn't need the money.
Yeah.
We had the money.
You did
elsewhere.
say that, and they've proved it. They've proved that. These
it.
are the things that are going under the carpet, James. I'm glad you brought it up because it's these little things. Listen, there's a lot of people in United fan base. We know this. We should have sold Bruno. So look what we could have done with the money, but like you said, Bruno basically said, well, they didn't need to sell me to do it. And, they didn't ask me to leave. So I don't want to. So everyone's like, we should have done that. We're not going to get no players. Then Inos said, here's Cunha and Bumo and Sesko, and we're looking at Baleba.
Yeah.
And we've kept our best player. You can't.
Would that have happened if he left? We don't know.
Exactly.
Would people have been convinced if you're selling your best player? Hard to say.
You don't know. Exactly. No, it's true. And I think actually people are a bit worried to say it or scared to say it. Not everyone. Some people are, because of like Ineos kind of working alongside the Glazers, and they're the screen, they're the shield, they're Glazers 2.0, Sir Jim Rat, and all that. Just all of that narrative, and then you it's all put into one of like, I didn't like some of the way they went about the decisions last year. I didn't like how clueless they did look at times. It didn't fill me with confidence as a fan. I was onto them with the Dan Ashworth thing. Didn't make any sense. So they've made mistakes along the way. But then when you see, if I'm going to give that criticism, which I absolutely think was justified in that time, I'm not going to see a brand new 50 million upgrade of Carrington, which we'll talk about in a bit. I'm not going to see Mbumo, Cunha, Sesko when I never thought that was possible, and then not say, you know what? That's good. That's good.
People are first to use the phrase best in class when we're getting pumped 4-0, 5-0, but when you do actually, look at best in class and what have you, you look at new training centre and top-notch signings. Benjamin Sesko announced tomorrow.
Yeah.
What happens when they're deciding squad numbers if they gave Sesko number 9?
Oh, if that happens,
I've wondered about that too. Like, are they going to give him a number tomorrow,
No,
or are they going to leave
that.
that number open?
Flex, they did it with Rashford.
It can still change until I think.
Yeah,
but
but
it can even
Rashford's
still
one
change.
For a player they didn't. They said that is the fullest indication of. Look,
they took Cavani's number too a few years ago.
Ronaldo,
you can start the season and have a number and then get changed with special dispensation from the Premier League. That's what happened with the Cavani Ronaldo one. But I think if you really were like, look, mate, I know you want to stay, and especially in this case, look, I know you really want to stay, but I'm telling you, go to AC Milan. If
I know the chat's going to be like, do it. Take his number.
When I said it yesterday, people were like, no, they think that's very hard.
But how are they going to push him? How are they going to push him? Like, beyond just saying it, like, what are they going to do to push him? Because they're going to push him here. And I don't think he's as insistent on staying as it sounds, but from what I've heard, but they're going to have to push him here.
I don't think they should do that.
That would be a way.
No,
I'm going to go on record. I would do it.
Fairs. Okay, you do it. You do that. Would you?
I would do it.
We don't need to. We don't need to treat him like that. Benjamin Sesko announcement, though, just quickly. Do we think that's coming today, or the announcement will be at the pitch?
I think it'll be the thing tomorrow, like we've done. Yeah.
It'll be Varane, Højlund-esque, with probably what kickoffs at 12:45 tomorrow. So might get announced at might get announced at like 12 o'clock, and then either just before kickoff or at halftime, wanders out, poses with the shirt, all that kind of stuff. Because by all accounts, he's at Carrington today, not only doing obviously medical stuff, but it's been obviously a big deal for the reopening or the unveiling of the new Carrington, which, by the way, just seeing some pictures from. There is a picture of, is it Patrick Dorgan going up a flight of stairs, which is one of the hardest pictures ever, with like the trophies in the wall. The picture I'm on about. Look at that.
Look at that. Maybe.
Oh,
cold.
yeah,
I was going to say, the fact you thought that was Dorgu is ridiculous, by the way.
Right, you know what?
Can we talk about that?
On my screen
How the
here,
hell did you think that was Dorgu?
It's really small on my timeline.